Crazy Stupid Podcast.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. If this is your first time watching us, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and for you to click that button so that you're notified when we release videos and shorts. We watched Across the Spider-Verse a second time because we kind of felt like after we watched the movie for the first time, we were on such a, I don't even know, a euphoric high from that film. And I definitely felt a little overwhelmed. My thoughts weren't all like fully developed. And so we were like, maybe we need to watch this again. So I did try to take a lot of notes because there are a few things that stood out to me. The first thing with Gwen, when I first saw it, I was like, maybe not. But then I noticed a couple of other things. You could see as you're watching this, they're fleshing out Miles' character a lot more, but it wouldn't be that far-fetched to say that this is a Gwen movie because you start things off and you end things off with her talking. And I think what makes her story so interesting for me is that as I'm watching, you could make the case that Gwen's story arc in this particular movie is an allegory for teenagers in the LGBTQ community. And it may sound a little bit far-fetched, but let me explain. Like, here's what I mean. So in a particular part in the film, in the background, you see Gwen have a poster that says protect trans kids, right? And I felt like that was intentional because a lot of the conversations that she was having, a lot of the dynamics, a lot of the language that was used in the film, a lot of the dynamics between Gwen and her father and Miles and his parents felt very much like what it is for teenagers in the LGBTQ community to come out to their parents and the dynamics that sort of come through there. So let me give you a few examples that I remember. The first one is obviously when Gwen's father sees her with Peter, right? Mm-hmm. He is consistently bringing up this idea of Spider-Man and vigilantes are not good people, right? And he doesn't even consider the possibility that I might actually have a superhero or even a Spider-Man like living with me. It could even be my kid, right? But that bias that he sort of has, even it's like clear misunderstanding because he is misinformed on what happened with Peter. Gwen did not, kill Peter. So they have that interaction. Gwen pulls up. They defeat, I think it's Vulture. She takes the mask off and he sees her, right? And that shock of all of like the bias and hatred that he had for Spider Woman and superheroes in general, like it wouldn't allow him to see that situation properly, right? And some of the language that I thought was very intentional where she was like, can you not be a police officer right now and just be my father, right? That was the first thing. The second thing that she said is, are you really that afraid of me? Like, I'm your daughter, right? When I sort of heard a lot of that language and part of her story arc, at least with Miles, was this idea of telling your parents about your other identity and their inability to feel comfortable in doing that. When I juxtapose the relationship that she has with her dad versus what Miles has with his parents, they are a lot more comfortable with the idea of superheroes. His dad is literally working with Miles. And so you could clearly see that if Miles were to come out, they would be a lot more welcoming. He just doesn't know that yet. There's also some other language, like Miles said things like, I thought that if I told you, you would love me less, right? So all of these different lingo that you're hearing throughout the films feels very similar to the dynamics of like children or teenagers in the LGBTQ community confronting this idea of when or should I tell my parents about this other identity, right? And it's also not lost on me that this movie is kind of coming out like at the beginning of Pride Month. And seeing all of that, it feels now very intentional about the language that they used, about the things that we saw in the background, like the flag, the banner that she had for transgender people. And I wasn't sure about it at first, but after watching it the second time, I'm like, oh, they are for sure going in this route. I thought the point to get across was the fear of coming out to your parents, like to find an allegory that can sort of explain that through the lens of the superhero genre. Now, I'm not here to say, did they do a good job or not? That was just something that I thought of with all of the similarities with Gwen's character. The second thing that I thought was pretty interesting. So this one kind of blew my mind a little bit, because we get the reveal of the alternate Miles Morales, or like the quote unquote evil Miles Morales. So, he's a Prowler, but I don't know if I'd call him evil necessarily. I actually think that in this movie, they revealed what is going to happen next time. So they actually told us what the third movie is going to be about in this movie. And this is what I mean. So when let me back that up. We learn at the end of the film that our Miles got bit from a radioactive spider that did not exist in his universe, right? And when he gets sent back to the universe where the spider existed, because he starts to glitch, right? And now, what I think we're supposed to take away from that is our Miles wasn't supposed to get bit, but I think the Prowler Miles was supposed to. And the reason why I think that is, earlier in the film, when Spot is giving his monologue of how he turned into this villain, it's this black and white picture that's sort of happening. And there's a very split second, you see a scene of what it looks like either students or engineers working with Spot. And from the back, you see a character that has the same exact hair as the Prowler Miles. I actually think in the first movie, my theory is all of those doctors, even Dr. Ock, were working with Wilson Fisk, with Kingpin, because they had some machine already established of working in different universes. I wouldn't be surprised if a character like Spot was not actually from our universe. I think what we could probably see as a theory is that he came from that other universe, and somehow with working with Fisk, he brought his radioactive spider accidentally. They lose track of it, Miles gets bit, and he turns into our Spider-Man. The proof of Miles not having to lose his father, or the proof that losing his father would be the worst decision, is what we saw with the Prowler in the other Miles. He loses his dad and he goes down an alternate path. It was like they tried to say that because you got bit, there wasn't a Spider-Man in that universe. Mm-hmm. I actually disagree with that in my head. I think part of the reason why we don't get a Spider-Man in that universe isn't solely because there's no like radioactive spider. I don't see a scenario where Miles loses his dad in that situation and he still ends up being like a good superhero. I think the reason why they played such an intentional effort in showing why Miles cares about his parents so much, like the talk he has with his mom and how that influences him, and the relationship that he has with his dad, is to show those two are the anchors for his character. And I think what the Prowler Miles represents is to show this is what would happen if he actually did lose his father. But in their mind, they think that this moment is supposed to happen in his story, and that would move him further as like a good superhero, as did for the other ones. But seeing what we've briefly seen so far, I'm not seeing that in my mind.
I feel like I think it comes down to the timeline of events in that other universe, because we don't really know the order of how things happened. And so it's also possible that, because when I saw how everything was in that universe and how Miles was, I took that more as like, because there's no Spider-Man here, mm-hmm. world is just chaotic, and so he's forced to like work with what he's got and try to figure stuff out.
Yes, no, I agree. There's no Spider-Man in terms of like, there's no like superhuman person there to fight crime, right? But he's still a Prowler. I think that's the difference. He could have used the technology that he had to be a good superhero, but because his dad isn't there, I think that's what sends him down that path in that regard. And so I think what's going to be interesting for them to explore in the next film is to really show how the loss of Miles's father was actually not in the best interest of him and anyone else in that universe. What makes it complicated was that there was no radioactive spider to maybe alter things there, right? But I think what I found interesting was you don't play such an intentional effort to show how reliant Miles is for both of his parents and how essential they are to like who we saw him becoming in this movie, and not see how this would probably send him down a darker path if he were to lose one or the other of them.
They're gonna have to explain this canon event thing. Because for me, the only thing that is setting our Miles Morales apart in this regard is that he's an anomaly. So to me, it's like, because he's an anomaly, maybe this doesn't have to happen for him. But like, they made it pretty clear in the other universes, if you disrupt a canon event, like everything died, like the whole universe collapses. If Earth 42 Miles Morales was supposed to be their canon Spider-Man, and like, how could his story have gone differently? Like, what would be the workaround there?
Well, I guess when I'm watching this the second time, I actually don't know if it is definitive that the universe will collapse, because something would have happened in Gwen's universe when she changes her dad's mind.
Well, I don't know, because what they make it seem is like, if you disrupt the canon event when it's about to happen, so like what happened with Miles was that he saved Pavlov's girlfriend's father as it was supposed to happen. You disrupted it in action.
Yeah.
And now that's what's happening.
So they wouldn't see it as a disruption if, let's say, earlier on they stopped her dad from just becoming a police in general.
I don't know.
Because I feel like that still kind of stops it from happening, doesn't it?
But she wasn't trying to. He made that decision on his own.
Yeah, but she influenced his decision, because he says, when she asks, when did you decide to do that? And she says,
halfway through your speech.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the rules are.
No.
They have to flesh that out a little bit more for us to know.
Yeah.
Because
she asked Miguel, where she was like, are you sure that him changing this would ruin everything? And he doesn't answer.
He doesn't?
Okay. When Miles escapes and they're all arguing, I remember her asking him that. And I was waiting to see, is he going to give
because then what,
like a reconfirmation of this is definitive?
Because then what happened for him when that happened in his universe?
See, I don't know. I'm confused as to how the thing is, like,
why does he we don't know a lot about that guy, because why does he give himself that shot?
Yeah, and it looked like he almost turned into a monster when he was fighting against Vulture. You didn't see when he came out, sharp teeth came out of his mouth, and he quickly remorphed back into himself.
What if he's Venom?
I don't know about that.
Because I was looking at it like, maybe the rules just don't apply to Miles because he's an anomaly, but maybe the point is that actually this doesn't have to apply to anybody.
What makes it bad for Miguel then? Because from what I've gathered, they saved Pav's universe.
They said that they were trying to. And Pav is there, so maybe that means that they did.
Right.
But I don't know. What does that mean? We don't know enough. We just don't know enough about what that looks like, what that entails. Does that mean that the captain gets to live forever, or does that just postpone the event until later?
Yeah, right. Are they going to have to keep saving his life over and over?
We don't know.
Is the timeline going to try to correct itself?
Yeah, we just don't know anything. But I think that's interesting. I do think that's an interesting angle on Miles. I want to say, like, at least our Miles has been established enough in, like, his character that even if he were to lose his dad, he would still, like, be okay. Not okay, but, like, would not turn. I want to say, like, his character has been strengthened enough, like his personal resolve and like his own morals, that like I think this version of Miles would be okay. I think we don't know enough about the other Miles to know of, like, we just don't know, like,
I don't know, because I mean, look at Andrew Garfield's. After, you know, he believes his parents are dead. The timeline got kind of wonky because we thought they were dead, but then his dad sort of showed up in like a deleted scene. I don't know. Then Uncle Ben dies, but then it's implied that he didn't, like, he stopped pulling his punches after Gwen died. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the same way Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man goes down a dark path because he loses Gwen, we could see something similar for Miles.
That seems within the realm of possibility. Him flipping entirely seems at this point in his development is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I wouldn't say flipping entirely. Yeah, no, you're right. I think him having the spider bite makes him an anomaly in comparison to the other Miles. But I do think it would alter him in a darker way across all universes if his father dies. And I think what makes it worse for Prowler Miles is that there is no spider bite to keep him morally grounded, because now it's just his uncle, you know, and whatever gadgets that they created with the Prowler. But
also, what does it mean? What does it mean that in that universe his uncle lives and his dad dies? You know, because isn't it like both those things are like a canon event?
Right. See, that's the other thing, but I think Miles not having a spider in his Prowler universe changes everything, because part of what sends Prowler down that path is Miles is like, they're like fighting throughout the entire movie, right? As Spider-Man, he's trying to defeat the Prowler. He's trying to defeat. All of that's not happening now. And so it's kind of like he's safe from everything that would have gone down between him and a potential Spider-Man, because like it's not.
But he also didn't become he's not even Prowler. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
you're right.
In our Miles universe, like, the uncle was Prowler before the Spider-Man, before all of that. So it's like, what, you know, like, things are different from like predating. Like, it's all different.
I think it comes down to him losing his dad.
But then that's the other question is like, well, then when did he lose his dad? Like, at what point in time?
I think we may not get all the technicalities, but I do think part of it would be he loses his dad around the same date when Miles lost his uncle.
So then his uncle was never Prowler.
In the Prowler universe?
Like, he was.
No.
Right, but why? Like, why is that different?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to find out.
I mean, they might explain it, but
it could just be circumstance, you know?
Yeah.
He creates that gadget as opposed to his uncle. All right, listen. Hobie is the MVP of this movie.
Yes.
100%. Obviously, his swag is like super cool, but he was helping Miles and Gwen like from pretty early on. Here's the thing that I noticed that I thought was very interesting. Remember when Miles first gets there and Hobie's kind of like...
He's trying to tell him to turn around.
Well, he's kind of interrogating him though, right? He's trying to see like, hey man, are you down with this establishment or are you against it like me? He wants to get a sense of like Miles's moral compass. And as he's asking him all of these questions, every time Miles answers, Hobie's taking all of these different pieces of like tech or metal all throughout the room. I think he was building the watch that he gives to Gwen to help Miles later on.
I thought he just gave him his own watch because he quits at the end.
I don't know. It could be, but I thought that, what are you taking all these metal pieces for? And I think we're maybe supposed to assume one way you could look at it is just he's just being an anarchist, which he very much is. But I think the other lens is he's not down for what they're doing either. Maybe not in the same way that Miles is, of like empathy for people who maybe should have a chance to live. He just doesn't like establishments in general. But I think it's like, maybe there's some coalition building going on here between him and Miles. And then he's like, all right, Gwen, I can see that you really care about this dude. Let me help you out. And he's like setting the stage for it earlier on, to see what kind of happens. Because even he's like pushing, he's like poking the bear in that argument early on, because Issa Rae's character, she was like, Hobie, you're not helping. And he was like, good.
Yeah. But do you,
and he teaches Miles what to do with the hands again.
Yes.
Yeah.
But so you think he knew how the situation was going to go before they told Miles about his dad?
I think he knew Miles needed a watch.
Because Miles said he wanted one.
Right.
And that's why he was.
And so he's like trying to see, all right, are you really down for this or not? But later on, he says, what I can do with this is to give it to Gwen so she can save Miles later on.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That
I was like, wait, he's doing this for a reason. Like, he's not like just some like leftist like nut job. Like he's intelligent up there, you know. We did kind of talk about this. It just, again, rewatching it, the film does a very intentional job of showing how Miles's racial identity plays a significant role in not just how he views the world, but his confidence in his ability as a superhero, right? His mom gives him that talk, and you know he's clearly talking about she's clearly talking about the fact that like he is, you know, Puerto Rican, he's black, right? And you know, you've shared this with me of like the conversations of the complexities of like Afro-Latinx people, like their ability to share their story and not sort of being placed in like a specific bubble, right? And I still do think it was intentional that the villain is Miguel, right? And he's trying to tell his Afro-Latina like, this is what your story is supposed to be. But Miles is able to not just push back on that, like metaphorically, but like quite literally. And I think it ties back to the groundedness that his mom gives him in that speech earlier on. I do feel like I would have liked to see them, and I don't know how they would have done it. The movie's already a bit longer, but I would have liked to see them explore the dynamics between the two of them a little bit more. Like, give us a little bit more backstory on Miguel, because I don't know. I would have liked to empathize with him a little bit more outside of the fact that like he lost his daughter.
He lost that whole world. He caused that entire universe to.
I think he just said that he lost his daughter though. Like he keeps looking back at the video, you know, with him and his daughter. So, I don't know. I would have liked to see them.
I'm assuming we'll get more in the next movie. I think they just had a lot to establish in this one.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that I was like, I thought was, like I said, it's probably like the last thing. The movie is very self-aware of them sort of poking holes in the traditional superhero tropes that we see all throughout it. So obviously the first one is we think they're going to follow the traditional path of villain of the week, right? That's something that happens in every single movie that is a superhero film. There is the initial villain you don't take seriously. They quickly defeat them, then you move on, right? That doesn't happen here. The second thing that I thought was very interesting is their use of who is the antagonist here. You have Spider-Man wanting to be the protagonist against other Spider-Man who they think are like, they think they are the good guys in this situation, right? Because there is the possibility that like Miles might end up destroying universes, right? I had only seen that sort of nuance between like protagonists like that, maybe from like maybe Civil War, but I was even thinking maybe Watchmen. That was probably the only other time where I probably saw something like this. The last bit is the origin story itself. Every single superhero, to some extent, they are not always like they don't like intentionally become it. Like they're not seeking it out in a lot of ways, particularly for like Spider-Man. Like, yes, they are accidentally bitten. But what we're told through Miles is that he literally is not supposed to exist as a Spider-Man, but as the movie goes on, we're still supposed to root for him. That things like that don't happen in like superhero films. And all of this is sort of happening that I'm like, man, I really appreciate this angle that they're going with, because it reminds me as a viewer of like, there are still places to go with superhero movies. Even when you have to sort of follow some of like the sort of traditional methods, there's still creative ways you can go through with that to make it refreshing. So I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah, I think that covers everything else. So, I mean, I caught other stuff. The beef patty scene is actually kind of funny. That was like pretty accurate because there's always that little random red dot. I was like, all right, I know what y'all doing. Miles had like a BLM sticker on his book bag, which is like, that's very accurate for someone like him. I did not like his teacher. His teacher felt racist to me.
Yes.
100%. The subtle tokenizing, the like trying to like romanticize this, not even an immigrant story because his mom is from Puerto Rico. All of that is kind of gross.
But yeah, that is the kind of stuff that a lot of people end up having to do in order to get into those schools.
I know. It felt yucky. Felt yucky.
What did he say? He was like, to even have a story seems gross.
Yeah. Watching it again the second time, I don't know if I'd say it's the best one. I don't know if I would definitively say it's the best superhero movie ever made, but I don't fault people for saying it.
I think it is. I can't think of another movie that left me feeling like that, honestly.
See, that's the thing. That sort of just positively overwhelmed. Nah, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I can't think of another one.
I mean, Infinity War came the closest, but
I just think the fact that with Infinity War there was 10 years of build up to get to that moment, and this is just one film. It did it in one movie.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say how I feel like the whole entire film is about existing between two, like you're not fitting neatly into a box in like multiple ways. Like they start off, they kind of lay the groundwork with showing us Miles's connection to Latinidad, like when he has the B in Spanish, and then they're talking, him and his mom are like talking in Spanish with each other. And number one, you could tell his Spanish is not as strong, okay? Based on how,
like the Prowler one.
Based on how he says things, okay? And
yeah.
I don't even speak Spanish fluently, but I was like, oh, okay. And there's like a couple moments like that, where like it just sort of they're sort of showing you like it's complicated to exist in that space, like to be both Black and Puerto Rican, but like you weren't born in Puerto Rico, you weren't, like, so you're existing in between these two worlds, and then he's existing in between these two realities of like where he's from and like the world like of his parents, and then like where he wants to go and what he wants to do, like going to Princeton and quantum physics and all these things that like for his parents and the generations before them, like they could not have even imagined that. Like what his mom says when he's like, it's my life, and she's like, no, it's not. She's like, it's not your life, it's my life, it's your father's life, it's your grandparents' life, all of these people that were put in the works that you could be in this position that none of us could have ever dreamed of, right? That we would kill to be in the position that you are in now, but instead we sacrifice that you could be there for us. So he's existing in between those. And then you also have the fact that he's sort of existing between like universes because all of his friends, like they make a point to tell us like this kid has no friends besides his roommate.
Yankee in the chair.
Yeah. So all of his friends are in these, you know, different universes. And then also he's like living a double life where he can't tell his parents about what he's actually doing, which they make a point to show us how difficult that is for him because his parents' approval means a lot to him. And he knows that his choices are disappointing them because they don't have the full picture and they don't understand what's happening.
That's such a first gen. Oh my God. That one hit home.
Like, so I don't know if you want to expand.
The approval part. Because, I mean, obviously his dad's born here, but I'm assuming his mom is from Puerto Rico.
No, she seems very much like a New Yorican. She gives very much like
so maybe
she's
like
born in
their grandmother.
Yeah.
Okay. But culturally, it's still very, it feels, and I still shouldn't say like first gen, but I'm assuming like they didn't go to college and what, like he's probably the first to really go through this. And I think culturally, there are still a lot of similarities, even though like Puerto Rico is considered part of America, culturally completely different. I mean, I kind of resonated with like the sort of fear that you sort of saw when they're finding about his grades, because I'm just like, oh my God, I'm getting PTSD of when my dad saw that I got like a B in English or like a B in math, because it's like drilled into you, we came to America to have a better life for you. And we talked a little bit about the dynamics between the two, like they kind of feel like they're trying to survive or like we're trying to like live a little bit, but underneath it all, you are still thinking, I'm not trying to mess this up. And you can kind of see that happening often with Miles, like the cake thing, the grades.
Yeah, I think that's a dynamic that exists in like a first gen immigrant experience, but also in like a class, like it's like a very class centric experience of like if you have working class parents who, you know, like in his case, they are putting in work to send him to a private school that they pay for him to attend, so that he has access to these different spaces. So he knows that there's a lot riding on him, and he knows that he really wants them to be proud of him. And he also knows that he's doing things that they would be proud of, but that he can't tell them because he's, I think, partly afraid of how they would respond, but I think also like partly afraid of putting them in any danger. Because that usually when they talk about the secret identity stuff with superheroes, usually that's what it is. It's not usually like I'm afraid to tell you because of what you'll think. A lot of time is like you don't tell them who you are because you're protecting them from getting involved with anything that you're doing. So like there's that, and then you also find out that like he's basically like, the fact that he's an anomaly is like he's literally like between two universes. Like his DNA is from a different universe than where his like physical body is, right? So like, I don't know, just all of it, just him being in between, just living in between two different experiences and just trying to define his own experience for himself in all aspects of his life.
There's this like kind of like the tale of two cities here thing going on. But you know, I was thinking as you were talking, why have we only seen 2 Miles? Because we saw a bunch of Peter Parkers. We saw the Andrew Garfield, we saw Tobey Maguire, we saw the Spider-Man video game. Peter Parker was in there.
That's why
we got Nick Miller, Peter Parker. That's
why I personally, I don't know that the other Miles was supposed to get bit. I'm not sure on that, because it seems like even when he went there and when he was talking to his uncle, he was like, I got bit by a spider, but it wasn't supposed to bite me. It was supposed to bite someone else here. Like, he doesn't name anybody. And I'm wondering if that Peter Parker from that universe was supposed to get bit and didn't. because Miles got bit over here.
So and maybe it wasn't supposed to be that Miles.
And that would explain why Miles is the only Miles that we see in that Spider-Man.
So there's only
world.
one Miles Spider-Man.
That's what it seems like.
So he's legit alone. Because
Yes.
you remember in No Way Home how comforting it was that Peter had other Peter Parkers? Miles doesn't have that. Mm-hmm. And that makes it even sadder, the fact that like none of these dudes came back to visit him. He's legit by himself. Man. But I do wonder, that's probably the angle that they'll take in the next film.
What?
Of that, you took this gift that I probably could have used that would have made my circumstances here better so that I didn't have to be forced into bad choices like becoming the Prowler. I think that's probably where he'll go, because I was trying to think when he says, now why would I do that? When Miles was like, you got to let me go. I think Prowler Miles is holding, like he blames our Miles for the death of his father and for the state of his universe, because he was given this gift that was supposed to be his, and it could have saved his dad, and it could have made their universe a lot safer.
But if it's not supposed to be Miles,
well, we don't know, but I think as he's hearing this, he's like, you're living the life as a Miles Spider-Man that should have been given to me, and you would have been fine with your Peter Parker. I think that might have been why they didn't want to let him go, because in my mind I was like,
well, my question is like, what are they gonna do? Like, what does not letting him go do for them?
I think they want I think they would see this as restitution or revenge, because maybe he's not like thinking through it clearly, but it's like, you took something that wasn't meant for you, and because of that you ruined my life.
Maybe, but I'm wondering if if they have a plan, because that other Miles is obviously still like extremely intelligent.
Hell yeah.
So like, I'm wondering if he has some sort of plan to, I don't know what it would be, but like I want to think it would be more than just revenge. When he says, now why would I do that? It makes it seem like he has a purpose for him.
Like I think he might try to take his powers. All right, so Little Mermaid.
Delightful.
Yeah.
Just really delightful. Halle Bailey, she ate down. She sang those songs, man.
What was her acting like?
It was really good. She did a really good job. It didn't feel like, you're good at singing, but like the rest of us were just kind of tolerating because you're so good at the singing. No, she actually did a good job in acting. Because a lot of the movies she can't talk.
Yeah.
And it was great. But the highlight was definitely her singing. Like, people in my theater clapped during her songs. Whoa. Because like it was just that good. Because you know how the song typically goes, and then there was moments where she would tweak it a little bit. I mean, like we saw in the trailer, she had that little run. Yeah. And there's multiple moments like that in part of your world, where like she just does something a little different, or she takes the note up a couple extra times or whatever. Like, yes, it was so phenomenal. They also knew to give her more than one song, because I forgot, but in the original Little Mermaid,
like 2 songs, right?
No, there's only that one. That's the only song Ariel sings in the original.
She doesn't sing something at the end. Maybe it's just a rendition of the same song.
Yeah, there's that, and then there's the siren.
That's what it was.
Yeah, that's only 2 things.
Does she do that?
Of course she does. Yes. But in this, they also added in other songs for her to sing, because it's like, we have Halle Bailey, like we can't just have her sing one song. Mm-hmm. So like there was in the parts where she can't talk, she has like an inner monologue going that is like her song.
Oh, it's like you're reading a book.
I get it.
Yeah,
so.
Like you can like read their thoughts.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So that was nice that they knew, like, let's give her a bit more. But Part of Your World was the highlight of the movie. Like, you can tell in the theater that's what everybody was waiting for.
Yeah.
Like, and she delivered.
Damn, is she gonna be like another version of like Jamie Foxx, where she's just excellent at literally everything and like just super talented?
I won't be mad. I shed a tear. That scene where she sings Part of Your World, It's phenomenal. Then, like, you know, the whole thing happens with the boat, etc., etc. She saves Eric, and then, you know, there's the scene where she goes back into the water afterwards, and there's a short reprise of Part of Your World where she gets up on the rock and the water splashes behind her.
I think she almost hurt her neck in that scene. I remember her talking about that, because doesn't she do a little thing with her hair when she first does it? Like, she comes into this.
Probably, I can't remember.
I remember her saying it hurt her neck.
Oh. I cried when that happened.
Really?
Yes, it was so good. Because, you know, like, that's the part, like, right beforehand when she's, like, after she saves Eric, the whole point of the reprise is that it's, like, she already wanted to be part of the human world, but now it's, like, a newfound determination. So she's, like, maybe this was probably in the original, too, but Halle Bailey, the emotion that I felt, she's, like, climbing up the rock, and she's, like, building up to the song. She's, like, I don't know when, I don't know how, but like watching, you'll see. So, and there's like this determination in her eyes. And then she gets up on the rock and belts out Part of Your World, and the water splashes behind her. And I was like, oh, and I cried. I shed a literal tear.
Damn.
It was so good.
This movie might have broken the curse of
The live actions.
Yeah.
It's definitely the best one. I still don't think we need any more, but like, it's definitely the best one. Now, Daveed Diggs, sir, the accent is so bad.
Oh God.
Now, the funny thing is though, like,
He's like a Caribbean accent, right?
yeah.
Why didn't they just get a Caribbean actor?
I have no idea. I mean, maybe because Lin-Manuel Miranda is involved and Daveed Diggs and him were like in Hamilton together and stuff.
He's trying to get his boy work.
So maybe, but
That's definitely
the accent's absolutely terrible. However, the line delivery was really funny. Like, Sebastian had me laughing out loud at multiple points.
What about your bestie, Aquafina?
She did a good job. She matches the character that they had her play, and they added a song they added this little number for Sebastian here that was like a little rap, but it's like a Lin-Manuel Miranda written rap, like, you know, that style that he does. That was like honestly very funny. It was like kind of hilarious. But no, it was good.
It's making good money.
I see why. It was quite good. I had a good time. I don't need to watch it again. Like, I would watch Part of Your World. I would watch that
like
again.
Just pull it up on YouTube.
Yes, I would watch her sing that again. That was so phenomenal. But like as a movie, as a whole, I was like, okay, you know, like,
you know, she got review bombed.
Of course it did.
Mm-hmm.
They did like blind casting too for like the race of like the families. Like, they're not racially consistent. Which
I can appreciate that.
I was like, it's cool. Like, the queen is black.
It's like the Brandy movie.
It really, no, that was my first thought immediately when she showed up. I was like, oh, that's what we're doing.
It's a Brandy movie.
Yes. And then also, like, the mermaids are obviously like all, that was cool too. Like, they showed like her sisters. They show her sisters in the original one too, but they showed her sisters, and it's like all different races. Like, there's that girl, I think she's Indian, from Bridgerton season 2 is one of her sisters. There's an Asian one. There was like this.
Was she in Sex Ed?
No.
Well, I might be confused with someone else.
I don't think so, because she's not British. I don't think. And then there was in
the movie, she's not British.
That actress, I don't think is British.
You can't tell with some of them. They had to do a good job in hiding that shit, but you might be right.
Maybe. I mean, yeah. And then there was like an Asian one. Like, there was this really beautiful like dark-skinned mermaid. Honestly, I kind of wish we could have spent like more time in the ocean, like more time establishing like Ariel's world.
Like, build more lore.
Yeah, but it pretty much is the exact same film, like, as the animated feature. Like, pretty much. They added in a couple things, but like,
yeah.
I want to say like the first like probably 40 minutes of the film is like literally identical. Like, she goes into the boat. There's the shark. There's like the shark chase with her. It's with her and Flounder. You know, so. Ursula was also really good. Melissa McCarthy did a really good job, like conveying that.
Yeah, when I saw that cast, I was like, yeah.
Some people were mad because they felt like it should have been a black woman for Ursula, because she is sort of like It says it should have either been a black woman or a queer person because her character is sort of.
Oh, I see what you mean.
You know.
I see what you mean.
But Melissa McCarthy did a good job, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, Halle Bailey ate down. Her and the Prince had really good chemistry. A lot of people were talking about that, and it's true. They did have really good chemistry. They gave him a song too.
Can he sing?
He's okay. It's like, you know, like he's fine. You can tell he's not like a singer. Like I feel like they probably trained him a little bit for this movie.
Yo, it's like what they did in the Lion King remake. In the
For
Be
who?
Prepared one.
Oh, for
Remember, he didn't sing it like the guy in the cartoon. It was like a.
who did Scar? I can't remember.
He's the one that was the I can't remember what his. I don't want to pronounce his name, but he did 12 Years a Slave. The actor.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it kind of sounds like they probably like gave him a bit more, like a bit. I feel like he had like a voice already, like he has like a fine singing voice, and they probably gave him a little bit of training. But there was also okay, you know how like you could tell a really skilled vocalist by like when they add in little things, it's like there's gonna be versatility to like the little add-ins that they do.
Oh, it was like
he did the exact same thing like 4 times.
The same run.
He did the exact same thing like 4 times. Like
That's actually very funny.
So I was like, oh, okay, like you don't do this. Like this is not something that you do. But like it was fine. Like it was okay. You know, it was one song, but
So you think it was worth making?
I mean, I'm not gonna say we needed it. I mean, I enjoyed seeing Halle in the role. Mm-hmm. But it was the exact same movie. Like, you know, like that's kind of where I am with all the live actions of like, you can, it's when I go see them, it's like a good time, but like, it's the exact same film. Like,
yeah,
you're taking the exact same events in the exact same order. Like sometimes the lines are even the same, you know, like, yeah, so it's like, it's cool, right? I like that we got a black mermaid and stuff. I'm not mad about it.
Yeah.
But did we need it? No. We don't need any of these live action remakes.
I saw this very interesting encounter online where they were talking about the success of the box office. And people just like generally speaking were sort of praising like, yo, like this is really good. Because now like there is a bit of like a sigh of relief for a lot of people, rightfully so, of like, all right, critics appreciate it. The audience score, we're always going to have an asterisk next to that, and it's making money. What I did find interesting was to see the pivoting or the changing of the goalposts in terms of things like, well, this is how much a movie is supposed to make if they want to consider it profitable. And that tactic I have seen happen often for a lot of these like person of color or minority, you know, led roles for these movies. And I think we kind of talked a little bit about this with the Star Wars and the misinformation one a little bit. And it really, in my mind, like validated my opinion of how like seeing how fans react to the Little Mermaid movie really confirms that like in order for just white supremacy culture in general to maintain relevancy, like it has to depend on misinformation like across the board, because you have to spread the false notion that inclusivity in film and media hurts your box office, it hurts your bottom line. It is not profitable, but you have to sort of bend the math in order for you to have that argument, right? And so you'll see them come up with these ideas of like, well, this is how much it's supposed to make to be profitable, or see, it only made this amount. And then when you compare it to other things, so it just gets so convoluted and messy, right? Or they'll bring up, it's sort of lost its relevancy now because of how racist people are. They'll bring up audience scores that I think is like super silly. But what it does is, in their mind, it reinforces the reality that they want to exist. They want a world where they can feel that it's true. Diversity and inclusivity in films will make bad movies. And so they'll review bomb a film or a TV show and then go back and say, see, this is why you shouldn't be doing it. Look at the poor score. It's like they're trying to will their bigotry like into existence. And it's so absurd. It's so absurd. So seeing that it was making money, I was just like, that kind of made me happy. And people were like kind of checking them in the comment section, like smarter people than me, obviously, of like, you're wrong. Like, this is a pretty successful film. So with that, thank you all again, and we will see you all next time. Peace out.